I am Jeff Foxworthy, and welcome to Gamekeeper Podcast. If you want to learn more about farming for wildlife and habitat management, then, buddy, you are in the right place. Join the Gamekeeper crew direct from Mossy Oak Land Enhancement Studio as they discuss the latest wildlife and habitat management practices, news, and, of course, hunting. There's no telling what you'll learn, but I'm going to tell you, I bet it's interesting. Enjoy.
All right, we are live in 3, 2, 1.
All right, everybody, here we are once again, West Point, Mississippi.
Welcome.
Yeah.
I'm talking for Lanny because he's not here.
Yeah, I was about to say. So we got a little bit different crew. Dudley, you're always here. We can't seem to get rid of you.
Right.
You're like that proverbial bad penny that always shows up.
But again, Lanny's not here, so I've already had 5 cups of coffee to try to compensate.
Yeah.
I can't do the laugh, though.
Well, sitting in Lanny's chair is Mac, who is taking time out of sales and running around in the warehouse and all that to come in here and sit down with us and be part of this podcast. So we appreciate that, Mac.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
we still got some time on the food plots.
We do, especially these guys in the South. So, and we hadn't had any rain in September to speak of. So, I mean, even if you planted earlier, it's just laying there waiting on the rain. So, guys, it is, if you're in the deep South, it's time to get it done.
Yep. And you've got all October, too, if you can't get it in September.
Yeah, the thing is, we're about a week behind on this podcast, so hopefully it will have rained by this time this airs. It looks like there's a 40 or 50% chance in this part of the world Sunday.
Good.
You just planted yours, didn't you?
Well, I got prepared to plant, so I'm looking at trying to plant Saturday is my goal. So there we go with that. So look, today we've got later on, and I'm going to introduce him a little bit later on, but we've got a guy that I met many years ago. We've got a mutual friend named Bruce Udala who introduced me to Paul Korn, and he is the most energetic, fun to be around, world-traveling bow hunter, gamekeeper, managing farms in Wisconsin and Missouri. He's just a ball of fire. But not everybody's heard of this guy, and I think he's just going to be. I'm telling you, he's so much fun. Now we may turn the cameras on and he not have that energy that he does in person, but he's incredible.
I've never met him, but I've laughed so hard at some of the stories of y'all talking about him and experiences at deer hunting, deer camp.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to this, and he's an incredibly knowledgeable bow hunter. He understands bows, so I'm looking forward to learning a lot of that stuff too.
Look, I don't have a problem going out and saying he may be the best shot, the best bow hunter that I know. Now, I'm not taking anything away from Mark Jury. I mean, Mark is the best deer hunter I know, but this guy he travels the world with a bow, killing stuff at 80 and 90 yards, but he is he's just incredible. You just have to hear it from his own mouth. I don't want to blow his own horn, but Mac, I really think you'll enjoy this. And so, Richie, before we get started down that rabbit hole, what have you got for us for a commercial this week?
So, commercial this week, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to expound on Leopold and talk to us about your experience out west.
Oh, yeah. So on my recent elk hunt, I don't know if I've got.
We got to hear that again.
Well, yeah. So, but I did. The Leopold glasses were just. I mean, you got to have good glasses out there on those mountains, and that was a big part of the hunt. And then when we finally got into some bugling bulls, and this one walks up at about 200 yards, and I get him in the scope. And I can see his eyes. I mean, I can look in his eyes, and I can tell if he's liking what he's seeing, or I can see all that emotion in his eyes. And when our guide, his name was Brady Talent, when he bugled at that bull, I could see the bull's reaction. I had the scope zoomed up. I could see that he believed that. He just turned and started walking straight toward us, and then he bugled. But yeah, I just remember remarking to myself how clear that scope was, and how that scope and being zoomed up to 14, it allowed me to visually see that in that animal's face. Yeah, I mean, he totally bought it.
Yeah.
And then later on, he literally bought it. So I'm a big fan of the Leopold products. So, Richie, thank you that's about as good a way as I could talk about them.
Great company, great warranty. They're hard to beat.
Scopes.
Shoot, I used them fishing. in Venice a couple weeks ago, and I mean that's just unbelievable. I mean, especially being able to see a lot of those triple tail. I mean, they did awesome. I mean, that from alligator hunting. I mean, shooting doves. I mean, I wear mine all the time.
They make fantastic glasses. They make fantastic rangefinders, scopes, obviously, and binoculars. So, guys, check out, what is the website?
That's be loophole.com.
Okay. All right. That sounds good. So, thank you, Richie. So, what about blood on the biologic? Anybody? I'm seeing there's quite a few deer being killed.
Yeah, we recently had a velvet season in Mississippi, and a lot of people were successful at that, and they're able to take CWD samples from those deer. So it was a good program to have, and a lot of people hadn't even really had an opportunity to take a velvet buck. And so this was good for a lot of folks.
Did y'all see where Owen Fennon killed a big deer with a velvet?
Yeah,
I
did.
He was a camera guy on the capture team, and a heck of a guy. I got to be around him out, going back to Colorado.
There's so many people killing deer right now. I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah, I had a buddy end up, Jesse, that our farms are right down the road from each other. He ended up killing a really good deer in Holmes County.
In velvet.
How
about that?
Yep, it was a great deer.
Wow.
And I mean, we're seeing a bunch of them fall, or a bunch of them fell, it seemed like. I mean, they're easy to pattern, it seems like, I mean, for the most part. And I mean, it gives you a shot where a lot of people in Mississippi don't get the opportunity to shoot a velvet deer.
Yeah.
Unless something weird's going on. But
Right.
it's a really cool thing. Hopefully they do it again next year.
Yeah,
I hope so. It was kind of controversial. Everybody's got their opinions, but I think overall it's a great thing.
Yeah, and I do too. I applaud the Mississippi wildlife guys for sticking their neck out and trying it. But I do think it was successful. So, all right, guys. Anything else to cover before we get started?
No, I collected some pawpaws, and I was hoping Vandy and Sam would bring some pawpaw ice cream in for us, but another week goes by with no pawpaw ice cream. So.
We did have the foxhole shootout last week, and that was just
big success.
An absolute blast. I mean, for St. Jude and Soul, I mean, it was a great event.
Dream.
Yeah. I mean, it was a fantastic event. Vandy, kudos to Vandy on that. I mean, he kind of ran with that ball and did a great job. It was an awesome event. The food was just amazing. All the chefs that came in town.
Yeah. What was your favorite?
Oh, probably the alligator sandwich ball bite thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that was I don't even know what it was called, but it was good. The tacos were great.
The lamb tacos.
I mean, just the raw tuna tartare.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. They brought in a whole tuna from Venice, Louisiana and cut that thing up. Murder Point Oyster Company brought several thousand oysters, and they were being grilled. They were being raw. I mean, had a raw bar. Michael Hunter was cooking those huge tomahawk bison ribeyes. Brian Jupiter. I mean, they cooked that venison leg. I mean, there was so much.
Yeah.
And then the golf tournament was awesome.
It was. It was a really good golf tournament. I got to sit on a hole out there, and me and Jason McKellar watched some folks try to hit a hole in one. No one got very close, but it was still a good time and for a great cause.
So any listeners that want to get involved with that next year, just be on the lookout. There's an Instagram page. There's a website for Foxhole Shootout. It's a really good time, and for the money you spend, it's the best meal, hands down, you'll have.
Oh yeah, it really is. So yeah, there'll be more about that coming out, but when it comes back around next September. So, all right. Well, so look, let's get started. We've got. Let's just start off. I want to introduce. So we've got on the line with us, and is Paul Korn, and he's from Wisconsin. He is he's an incredible bow hunter. He owns an archery shop called A1 Archery. He's got an outfitting business in Missouri called Tombstone Creek. He's made fortunes in the plastics business. He's just done it all, and he spent a lot of time in Mississippi. Worked with Will Primos a bunch, and so Richie, could you hit the horns, please? There we go. We're hitting the horns for you there, Paul. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I know any day's a good day when I hear alligator sandwich. I just can't get over that, man. Wow. That's might be the farm boy in me. That sounds kind of good. I could go for that for lunch today.
Yeah, our buddy Craig Verhaga did that.
Yeah, it was so good. You'll have to come down next year for it.
Oh my! You got me. I'm in.
So we're looking at you, Paul, and in the background, it looks like there's 40 or 50 deer heads and antelope and mule deer. So this must be you must be in your trophy room, I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm in my kind of my office area where I have hung a few items that I've collected throughout the years. Yeah, so my office is kind of set up as a pretty nice man cave.
Yeah. So one of the things that, when I met you years ago through Bruce, just instantly, you've got such a good vibe about you. You're such a positive guy. But you're so much fun to be around. But you may be, and I'm sure this isn't the first time you've ever heard this, you may be the most OCD guy I've ever met. And I think we need to throw that out first so that as we start explaining about Paul, people understand just how OCD he is.
That's definitely true. That's right. And I'm usually pretty optimistic. The glass is usually half full running over. So, but yeah, no, I get pretty, especially when I get wound up talking about something, I get pretty animated, I guess. But yeah, I don't like to sit still. I've always got something going on, and I've always got something in the works. I'm always planning and scheming and getting ready.
Yeah, well, and so you have traveled so much, and you've got a YouTube channel that I think has got over 1,000 videos, and it's of Paul hunting, just various stuff, he and his family's son and whatnot. But he, correct me if I'm wrong, over 500 and something animals?
Yeah, I've taken, I think it's like 580. It's close to 600 different big game animals that I've taken with bow and arrow. Of course, I've been doing it a long time. My dad got me bow hunting when I was very young. And of course, we grew up on a dairy farm. So, believe it or not, there was always something to do. But once I got off that farm, I got hooked up with a really good friend of mine yet to this day, Tim Gass. And I thought, we were just talking about it over the weekend. I thought he was just the most experienced, awesome hunter because he had killed 3 deer with his bow, but back then I was just out of high school and I was going on to school. And it's like this guy, and he taught me a lot, actually, how to use a tree stand and stuff like that. And then once I got away from that farm and had some time to actually get out in the woods, I guess what you'd call would be like went a little crazy. And it was kind of interesting because when I was younger, it's a really interesting, like today, if you think about it, more people will watch hunting than'll actually do it. Actually spend the time. Well, of course, when we were all younger, it was just the opposite. You maybe would look forward to, Outdoor Life coming out, or like Fur Fish and Game, and maybe get an article on trapping, or, get an article and then you would try to, everything was done through trial and error. And, it's changed so much. There's so much information out there, and there's so much technology, so much equipment. It's almost mind-boggling if you take a 1-month hiatus from what's going on. You're falling behind already, But it was kind of neat the way that we grew up, just going out and learning how to do it, and and honing your skill. And I remember going to like the deer classics in the late 80s. Miles Keller would be doing a seminar on whitetail hunting, and there would be, 25,000 people there, and you could hear a pin drop in the place. Everybody's just honed in on every word, trying to learn what they could learn to be able to shoot a deer like this guy could, so that's kind of the cool thing. I've seen a lot, when I started my archery shop in 1988, I would say probably 25% of my customers were shooting traditional yet. I'm right on the Minnesota border. Mechanical releases were not even allowed. I believe that it was like, I want to say it was like 92 or 93. So my customers that, lived and hunted in Minnesota couldn't even use a trigger aid, so everybody was shooting fingers. I was selling a lot of those can't pinch tabs, and stuff like that. So anyways, it's kind of interesting to see the transition going from that now, to compounds, to now really to crossbows. I mean, crossbows, I was just talking about it to my partner at A1 Archery, Dan Ellison. I said, man, when we started doing this in the late 80s, people were transitioning out of out of recurves. Now it's really 30 years from now, it's probably going to be, it looks like it's going to be, crossbows are going to just pick up more and more steam,
Well, we'll see. It's kind of, I like doing it all different ways. I've got a crossbow.
Yeah.
I've got a compound.
Yeah.
I still shoot a recurve. I've got my dad's ancient bear longbow.
Absolutely. And,
It's just-
and what we're seeing here is that, the firearms numbers are going down, especially in Wisconsin, since they made it all inclusive. The firearm sales, license sales are going down. People are doing it earlier. They're using the crossbow, so, we do it always. I have nothing against, I actually have a whole closet full of guns. I think I have about 25 of them. I probably need a refresher course on how to load it. I'll probably have Bobby come up one of these days and show me how to load this thing and how it all works or whatever. But I just don't use them a lot. I really used to enjoy shooting them, but I got so heavily into archery and traveling, and it seems to be pretty much a year-round deal now. But I absolutely love, I hope I can shoot my compound bow, for many more years. I'm going to be 57 this year, and I noticed my shoulders are, how do you say, getting a little crunchy. You know what I mean? There's been a lot of arrows run through there, so, but hopefully I can keep going and do it for a long time. I love, there's nothing like bow hunting.
So I've been in a camp with this guy, and I'm telling you, he's a cold-blooded killer. But there's two things I hope that we can do today, Paul, and so that we can learn, our listeners can learn. But so we're right here. Bow season has started in some places. It's about to start in others. What can you give some tips that guys can do right now to kind of polish up on their bow skills and get ready? And then after we do that, I also want to make sure that we get you to explain how you keep your composure in a tree stand, because you're really good at that. So if those things, I want to take a little time and let you explain those things, please.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, if it's okay, can I start with keeping your composure?
Yeah.
Because keeping your composure is such a hard thing. I don't know if you'll ever master it. It's kind of really controlling it, but I think the theme of the day is to try to keep things as simple as you possibly can. And to me, if you're to keep the key to keeping your composure is to only focus on breathing. That is it. Keep it very simple like that, because I've actually filmed a lot of people, and I've been like, especially, bear hunting. I bet you I filmed over 100 bear hunts. It's kind of a, it's a controlled thing where you're bringing animals, and I watch people and they don't realize it, but you're holding your breath. I think a lot of buck fever and stuff is starving your brain of oxygen, and everybody's going to react differently under intense pressure. It's no different than, I'm a Green Bay Packers fan, so I don't like the Vikings. And Kirk Cousins seems like he always has trouble at prime time, and it's like, I don't know why he doesn't have it, but I don't want to give him any secrets either. I don't want to tell him to start breathing, but I mean, seriously, if when an animal's coming in and you feel your heart rate elevating and you feel yourself getting weak, if you just focus on breathing in and exhaling, inhale, and just make sure and you're kind of thinking about that, and you're kind of like, when you're shooting a bow, if you're thinking about aiming, if you're concentrating on aiming, it'll give you target panic to some degree. Aiming always has to be secondary. That's why for some people, it's so much easier to shoot at an animal than it is at a target, because you're trying to precisely get that right on the bullseye. So really, you need to, if you focus on breathing, I promise it'll help. And then my wife laughs at me, because when I first started hunting and I got married at 20 years old. And so I've been married for a long time, where I'm looking at the clock going, holy cripes, it's 40 years coming up here pretty soon, But I used to tell her, I remember when I started to kind of beat it a little bit, where something would come in and I wouldn't fall apart, or not remember what pin I used, or rushed a shot or whatever. I told my wife one time, and she still laughs about this. I said, I imagine I'm at the zoo and there's an imaginary fence all the way around me, and I can't quite see it, but I know he can't get away. So I'm going to get a really good shot. I'm not going to do something that I wished I wouldn't do. like it's walking at me and I think, oh yeah, I'll try one of them head on shots that work 1 out of 10 times, but I think you're so worried about your, opportunities are limited throughout the year. So whatever you can do to trick yourself into, believing, but then eventually, really honestly, it's just breathing. And then after a while, if you hold your breath a little bit, I'm just amazed at how many times I've seen people do that. You start getting a little bit amped up and you hold your breath a little bit and you do stuff that is like, like what in the heck are you doing? Hey, you're talking to them, tell them to draw draw now. And they're sitting over there and they're just like in a, just breathe in, breathe out. That is the number one most important thing. If you can master that, just think about breathing. I promise it'll help. Then you're thinking about something else other than, oh my God, he's going to get away or whatever. So hopefully that's some advice that, listeners can use. It's been very, very, very helpful to me. And then as far as, and I don't know if you want to have any follow-up questions to that or whatever, I was going to jump right into preparation for season.
Yeah.
So preparing for season, once again, my theme is always going to be the basics. And I'll use a football analogy. You'll be watching football and the guy's running before he catches the ball, right? It's like, you get a little bit ahead of yourself. I see so many people that don't cover the basics. And what I mean by the basics are, if you have any new equipment that you've actually practiced with it and used it. I mean, down at Tombstone Creek, last year we killed like 160 some deer last year between all the bucks and the non-birthing deer.
Now, what in the world are you
I'm
talking
politically
about?
correct, all right? But so and them are the ones that are killed, and of course, there's just as many that are shot at or opportunities get messed up, and it's amazing when it's kind of just you and your friends, and you hear little things when you have like a couple 100 different people doing this, and you hear the stuff that goes wrong. Oh, I got a new face mask, and I drew back, and I couldn't see through my peep. And you're going, oh man, these are all very, very, I got a new safety harness and I went to turn, I couldn't turn to the left, and it's like, so anytime you get something that's new, it has to be tried and true. You have to make sure that, your opportunities are going to be very minimal bow hunting. So make sure that you're set up for a 20-yard shot and under. So in other words, don't have a 40-yard pin on your bow and say, I'm going to aim, I'll just put it on the bottom if he's lower. The ones that you want to convert are the closer, even though everybody talks about, you've shot so many animals at longer distance and stuff like that. In some ways, I'm kind of embarrassed that I couldn't figure out how to get closer, but for the most part, I want you to set up for that 20-yard shot and make sure that you can use all your equipment and that, like, your bow is going to be quiet. You can draw it at different angles, that you can find your anchor point, that you can see through your face mask, that you can operate with your safety harness on. So if you're in a ground blind, you're not going to hit the windows. All this stuff, or even if you're in a ground blind sitting in a chair, like all the times I've seen people hit their legs, I'm literally, if I'm filming a hunt, I'm watching. No, you're going to, I'm trying to save people from themselves, but there's not going to be somebody there watching you all the time. You need to make sure that that all these little things, all these little details are what end up killing your success in bow hunting. And it's just amazing. Like, so last year or 2 years ago, Matthews comes out with the V3 bow, right? So all these people come with V3 bows, and then the V3X comes out, that's the current model right now. And somebody will come up to me and say, hey, I've got the V3. Do you think it pays? Should I buy the V3X? And I'll be like, didn't you just tell me you don't have a rangefinder? Yeah. And I'm like, you know what? Here's what I would do if I were you. You're getting ahead of yourself a little bit. You're thinking you're going to shoot that much better with a new model bow, but you don't do anything for scent control. Your tree stand's squeaky and crappy, if I can say that, and you don't have a rangefinder. So why? I would rather go dig my old Bear Whitetail Hunter out of the closet and use that than to not have a rangefinder, because if I know how far it is, I have a chance. But so people are really, it seems like, focused on not the right thing. I mean, whatever equipment you have, I mean, if you got a bow that's 10 years old, you put that in the right hands and with somebody that can actually run that thing and get the arrow to go out the window, or be able to shoot with their face mask on and all this other stuff. Them are the people that are deadly, being able to get cover all your bases on the details, not, like I said, it's really crazy. Someone will call me, I've got 11% front over center. I'm thinking about going to 18, and then we go through all this stuff that at the end of the year, how'd your season go? I hit the window on the blind. And you're like, God.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, all right, well, I guess I just assumed that part would be taken care of, but a lot of that stuff happens, so that's really my kind of whole take is, and then, really any practice that you can do that that's going to be real hunting, hunt simulated. I remember, like, man, we had no money and nothing to do when we were kids growing up. So it's like, oh, bow season is in 2 weeks. We take our Baker climbers and we go practice with them, because, the first couple of times you go out, you're going to be all thumbs. Maybe
sure.
Your backpack's got all your turkey stuff in it. You take all that turkey stuff out and you get it, I usually, when people come to hunt with us at Tombstone, I like to find out, have you hunted this year yet? Well, no, I haven't hunted since turkey season. Well, if they've hunted a couple times, and even if they shot a doe, they're ready to go. They kind of got what it's like that first time you go out, you go to pull your grunt call out and there's a crow call there. That doesn't work very good for deer hunting, So, I mean, that kind of crazy stuff, it's like just to kind of, get in the group. But if you can get out, and if you're using a climbing stand, or people will come, hey, look, I bought this tree saddle. What do you think of those? I'm like, well, what do you think of it? Well, I don't know. I haven't tried it yet. I'm like, well, you're going to learn how to use it tomorrow when you're hunting the 100. Well, that sounds pretty crazy to me, but I mean, and don't get me wrong, I have nothing against as many arsenals as you can have in your toolbox. If you've got a climbing stand, a hang-on stand, a sling, a ground blind, the more tools you have, but you need to know how to use this stuff. And you're not going to learn to use a tree sling, I'm pretty sure, when you're on your hunt in Missouri for 1 week. And I've had people pull brand new bows out of the box. I got to put my bow together. And you're like, ooh, boy. That is that set up for success on Bobby?
Yeah,
but I mean, it's probably common sense to a lot of people that have been doing this for a long time. But it's amazing how all these little details, because archery is all about eliminating variables. It really is. I mean, the more variables that you can eliminate, the easier it's going to be. So, and if you start with the simple ones, like I can see through my face mask, I'm not going to hit my leg, my safety harness isn't going to get in the way. I'll figure out the yardages. I know how to load my bow. My quiver doesn't rattle when I shoot. My bow's quiet. I've gone through and I've prepared and I've taken care of all them things. Then things get a lot better if you can just eliminate variables until you get to the point where, like if one gets you, you're surprised. I didn't see that branch, because I know when I hunt, I memorize most of your shots for deer hunting, especially in Wisconsin here, you're going to be in timber. It's going to be dark the last 15 minutes. And I need to memorize at least 3 or 4 lanes. If I get sloppy, and it's amazing how you're in the woods and you got like 4 good spots you can shoot. And then the last 15 minutes, heck, I can shoot anywhere. This looks great, but it really isn't. It's not. Because when I go down to help you look for your arrow and it's stuck in the ground sideways or whatever, yeah, it looks like you went through some, I call it cabbage, looks like you went through a little cabbage. Man, it looked clear. Well, there's things that you can do to mentally prepare yourself for that, So that's kind of, really the big take on what I try to communicate with people,
This guy had, I think that was 21 minutes.
Was it really? Oh God, I'm sorry.
No.
Actually,
you're
there's a lot of people that would be proud of me. Wow, you stopped less than a half hour.
So, Dudley, I told you he was high energy.
Oh, yeah.
So I know you've got a question.
Well, I was going to say the biggest takeaway I got from that, and something I learned the hard way, is when I have my bow, and when I get up in my stand and get ready, it only makes sense to make a few practice draws.
Absolutely. Every time,
like you said, there's no branches in the way. You're shooting close to underneath you, all the way out to 30 or so, to the right, to the left.
No,
that's
a very
noise.
And absolutely, like I always, knock an arrow up. If your peep's not going to roll or something, or some crazy thing's going to happen, you're going to want to know before the deer gets there, and it just kind of becomes, I think them are just really super good habits to build, is to try to be as proactive as you can. And, and I'll be honest with you, the last, probably 10 years, I was so anal about all that stuff. I've become a little bit more, complacent on a lot of things, but I put my arrow in and I draw my bow back. And I want, you might find out that you draw your bow back and you let down and your loop squeezed in a little bit, and all of a sudden your arrow goes shooting out of there. Well, when the big buck, stops behind a tree and you let down and your arrow falls. I've heard that story 100 times, but you want to try to eliminate all those variables, those bad. Usually when a deer comes in, there's a lot of things that can happen, and most of them end up not being very good. You know what I mean?
And then I do have a question. You were talking about, controlling your breathing before the shot. Yes. And all that, trying to keep the buck fever from happening or reduce
Yes.
it. One little trick I do, and I don't know if it's necessarily the right thing to do or not, but to control me turning into a madman, I often don't look directly at the deer. But then again, it might be better to be looking exactly where you need to aim. But what do you do in that situation?
I don't like to look at the rack once I've determined that I'm going to shoot it. I like to look at the deer, and I try not to focus on that, and I think it's a little bit different for everybody. Some
Sure.
things work for some people, and they kind of, hopefully they can figure it out. But, like for the average person, if you get to hunt, a handful of times a year, how many encounters are you going to have? And how many years how many decades go by before you can kind of, maybe somehow get a handle on it? But I literally determine if I want to shoot it. And usually, and it's another thing too, I can tell serious hunters by, like, if you're going out and you don't have field glasses on and you're telling me you want to shoot a 170, it's like, well, so you're going to judge it when it gets like underneath it. Don't you want to look it over and figure out, you kind of got to sort through all the stuff. But once I look it over and determine that I want to shoot it, I'm going to try to, harvest this. I don't like to look at the antlers. I do like to look at, maybe just the bigger picture, and really keeping both your eyes open too, because I've done that. Well, I shoot with both my eyes open. I may blink my left eye, but your depth perception, your field of view goes away. But if there's a deer coming in from your left and you're a right-handed shooter and you close your eyes, I've already had them, they're coming in, and just before they get into your view, they turn and walk away and you don't even know it. You're like, okay, where are you? Where are we? And then next thing you know, oh my gosh, he's 10 yards walking away. I like to be able to keep a wide field of view and just focus on breathing, and and then look at where I want to shoot and where my best shots are, and kind of really, it's just like anything else. Everything slows down as you get more experience and you get a little bit better at it. But it's kind of, bow hunting's kind of cool, because I'll take somebody that shot 100 deer and they're just deadly, right? And then you take them bear hunting and a dang bear comes crawling in there. Boy, you're gonna find out what you're made of now, boy. You know what I mean? It's like, oh boy, we're not deer hunting anymore. We're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. So you kind of experience, like the last time where I've almost fell apart was I shot a brown bear in Alaska, and he walked up this creek at me, and his head was about that big around. And it's actually behind us in my trophy room here. I just didn't set up that way. But anyways, that one there, I was both excited and kind of scared for my life. The thing was just this big, huge 1,000-pound lumbering thing. And he walked literally right up to, he was just like maybe 3 yards away.
Oh gosh.
And the guy's over my shoulder going, don't shoot. And I'm like, Ooh, and then he turned and started walking away, and he got broadside. He's about maybe 10, 12 yards. And he's like, okay, you can shoot. But he was walking and I'm following him. He's like, you can shoot, you can shoot. He's telling me, I'm like, man, be quiet. Finally, he stopped at like, he was under 20, maybe 17, 18 yards. And I poof, the arrow went through him, and he does the old, and I'm like, and I started grabbing for another arrow, and he's grabbing me. He's like, I told you not to move after it. And then the bear walked off and fell over. And I'm like, oh my Lord, that was, but you got to remember, and I try to remember that there could be somebody that's trying to kill their first doe, and they could, that could happen to them. I mean, it's everybody's going to react differently to it, but I promise you, focus on breathing. That is, I mean, if you can do that, that's going to help. And then everything else will just kind of evolve. Then it's going to be, like, what do you look at them? Do you not look at them? Do you just, do you kind of, you'll figure out different ways to deal with it. But if you can focus on breathing, that's a really good point of emphasis.
I'll add that to my arsenal.
3 yards?
Yeah.
3 yards on the brown bear?
I know it was, I tell you what, it was very intense. And then the guy that I was hunting with, I ended up guiding for him for a few years up in Alaska, and he wanted me to guide. He goes, man, I can get all kinds of archery hunters if you'll guide them. I'm like, no, thank you. Wow. Them things look like they could hurt you.
So if you had shot him at 3 yards, he would have just turned around and mauled y'all?
Well, and that's why he was telling me not to shoot. Even like when he first turned around, he wanted the bear to get away from me, which I didn't understand, which I quickly did when I shot. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, I get it now.
That might be too late.
Yeah, no, he's like, he wanted it to get away from us a little bit. And he even told me that beforehand, if the thing's real close, don't shoot, because if he comes unglued, we'll both, we'll be, it's going to be a bad deal, but yeah, so it was pretty intense.
Oh my goodness. Mac, I'm looking at you. You look like you got a question.
I do. I've got a bunch of questions, but two that I wanted to ask, Paul, was kind of back to the preparation aspect. So I know for me, I pull my bow out about a week before season.
Oh, don't admit that.
I mean, not really, but I mean, when you're trying to condition your body to get back into bow hunting, I mean, if you don't shoot year round, what are some good practice, I mean, like regiments to get your draw hold longer and to kind of get back in the groove of things before season?
You know what? That is a great question. And if you've gone a month without shooting your bow, you're going to know, really what the condition of your shoulder and arm muscles are, and which is really kind of a good gauge, because, I know it happens a lot during hunting season, especially up here in the north. It's going to get a little bit cooler. And when you get cooler, you get a little tighter, and it's a little bit harder to pull. But it was really interesting because my wife, she hasn't bow hunted in a few years because she's had some shoulder issues. But I remember for her, it was 44 pounds. At 44 pounds, she could pick her bow up cold and draw it back and aim. And she might be a little shaky, but I mean, she could handle the bow where, if you're pointing, if you're doing that, you need to be able to take it. When you pick that bow out of the closet, you hook that release on. If you can't slowly and smoothly point it at the target and make the least amount of movement, you're probably shooting a little bit too much poundage. Now, like my wife, like let's say we're getting ready to go bear hunting and we start shooting and we're going to shoot heavy for 6 weeks. I'd turn it up a couple of pounds, like every few days. Next thing you know, she's shooting 55 pounds and she can draw it fine, and then literally we get done bear hunting and she hasn't shot her bow in a couple months. She picks it up. She can't even draw it back. Turn it down to 44. She can get it back. So I think everybody's kind of got their point where, like, there's so many push-ups you can do if you've never done them. Maybe one guy it's 5, the next guy maybe you haven't done a push-up in 3 years and you can get down and do 20 of them. You're kind of your natural strength. So that's kind of, I think, like almost like a baseline. And then so if you kind of hang around that baseline, you really don't have to worry, and you can get your muscles toned up very quickly. And I've noticed that as I've gotten older, it's like, holy smokes, like especially once I got to like 55. I shot a Cape Buffalo at when I was 56, and I had my bow. I had an 80-some pound bow, and so I worked my way up to that, and I can handle that just fine, right? Well, I got home, and heck, I wasn't even home. I'll bet you not a week and a half, and I went to draw that back, and it was like, I think some stuff tore loose in some places, you know, like holy smokes, man. But I mean, you know, so you kind of, but I think, you know, practicing in a simulated hunting condition with the kind of poundage and really with your clothes. I mean, all these little details get everybody every year as far as like, oh man, it got cold. I put my jacket on, my string hit my jacket, and you know, my arrow flew funny, and you know, I made a bad shot or I missed, or you know, all that stuff happens. So anything that you can do to simulate hunting practice, which is kind of nice. Like when we were young and we had, you know, no money and a lot of time, that's all you did. You went out and tried to plink squirrels and, you know, stalk squirrels and shoot at them. And you kind of learned all this stuff. And like I say, now most people are going to watch it and they're going to try to learn something, you know, watching YouTube or, you know, Gamekeepers, you know, podcasts and stuff like that. But you still have to get out and you have to do it. You know, you have to practice it. So simulated hunting practice is very important.
Yeah. And I think with being an archer, being in better physical shape, it aids you more so than most of the other things that we try to do.
For sure.
So look, Paul, could you talk about shooting animals at long distances, and I want to make sure we caution people before if they watch you on video shoot something at 90 yards that there's a lot that goes into that. People shouldn't just you know, automatically think, well, I need to try that. Could you kind of touch base on learning to shoot that far and the scenarios that you feel comfortable shooting that far, and also explain why somebody shouldn't do that as well?
Absolutely. And you know what, I'll tell you, everybody asks like, you're going mountain goat hunting, what's the farthest you'd shoot? Well, you can't answer a question like that. I mean, there's too much that goes into that. It all depends on, I mean, winds are probably the worst thing, you know, for long distance. I mean, not only is it the drift on the arrow and the drag, it's going to be, you know, just being able to, I'm sure everybody that's done much bow shooting at all knows when that wind's blowing, it's grabbing your bow like an umbrella and it's moving around. So all these things have to be factored in, you know, to before, you know, what you're effective or what distance you would actually shoot in a particular situation. I mean, I had one, I shot a mule deer, I don't know, about 5 or 6 years ago. It was like 35 to 38 mile an hour winds with gusts up in the 40s. And the good thing about that is that we were stalking this deer and I was able to get 20 yards from it. And heck, that seemed like a long shot to me. I mean, the bow was blowing all over and I did hit it back a little bit from where I wanted to, but I hit it good and it ran over the hill. My dad was with me. We went back, we could actually see it. And, you know, about 50 minutes later, it died. But there's a case where, you know, had there been no wind, I may have taken up to a 70, 80 yard shot, you know, in that situation. But because of the wind, it's so much lower. But one thing I'll tell you about, about long range shooting is that I want you people need to think of a long range shooting for follow-up shots. I mean, not only as the primary shot, but as the follow-up shot, because, you know, there's a lot of times where, boy, I'll tell you what you think. And I'll tell you what, it just happened to me. I was actually hunting with Bruce Hudala, just last week or the week before last. Season opened on the 1st of September. Must have been I hunted 5 days with my dad. He got his on the 5th. On the 6th, I shot a deer and I shot a real nice mule deer. And the first shot was back a little bit, but I thought it was good. I mean, he ran off and he went across the ditch and he turned broadside. And the first shot, he was like 28 yards and he stopped and I thought he was going to go down. And I watched him for about 10 seconds and he didn't go down. So I grabbed another arrow and I shot him at like 68. And actually that shot was better. And he ran off and ran over the hill and died, you know. It's like, I mean, there's times when, you know, a follow-up shot is, you know, it can be very, very beneficial. So if you can do it, and I think shooting long range, just in general, if you're practicing, you know, and you're shooting at 100 yards, and you can hold really nice groups at 100. Let's say you can keep them in a volleyball or a softball at 100 under ideal conditions where there's no wind and you're out there shooting. You know, when you get to the closer distances, it's a lot easier. mean, you go up to 30 yards and you feel like at 30 yards, you're standing right on top of it, and you really shouldn't be, you know? So, I mean, I think I just did a lot of long range shooting, and I kind of started out more with follow-up shots. And then eventually got to the point where, you know, I can actually, shoot well enough, you know, that, hey, this could be, you know, if I get, 85 yards from a mule deer, I could do it. Now, I'd always recommend trying to get as close as you can, because I'm not trying to show off. I'm really not. And in some ways I'm embarrassed because I can't get closer. You know, my whitetails, I've shot a lot of whitetails, and I've never figured out the average, but it's probably 20 yards. I mean, most of the whitetails are pretty close. You can call them in, you get set up. I mean, I've shot some, I can't even think of any, you know, too crazy, but most of them shots, like when you're caribou hunting, you know, and you're mule deer hunting, and like I've shot all 5 species of caribou, and I've shot all the deer and all the different mule deer and stuff. And, you know, and you get into that stuff, and it's, you know, if you can extend your distance, it's going to, you know, give you more opportunities. But, you know, on the flip side of that is I'm always very cautious. And like, I know, like you were talking about Will Primos, and he always likes to tell stories. I hunted with him for many years, and he'll talk about this shot or that shot or whatever. And I'm like, man, I really firmly believe you're only as good as your next shot. And so I hate talking about it, because then, you know, I know what's going to happen. The dang deer's going to come by at 22 yards and I'm going to shoot it in the front leg, you know? I mean, it's like, maybe he was too close. I mean, a lot, like I said, when you take a shot, a lot of stuff can happen. And a lot of times, most of it's not very good. But if you really, really feel confident and don't really get, out of your means, or, you know, or do something that, I mean, if you start doing stuff like, you know, hanging the pin 3 feet over their back and stuff like that, that's going to get you into trouble. I mean, you start relying on luck, and that's where you're going to get into trouble. Now, on a follow-up shot, if you're trying to get another arrow into something, you know, that's a different deal. But your first shot, you're hanging a pin 2 feet over something's back. You'd be better off to just kind of regroup and try to figure out how to get into a spot where you can shoot it, where the conditions are right, and you have a pin for it. And then that makes, you know, it makes everything kind of mesh together, you know?
Right.
That makes too much sense from, you know, ethical standpoint, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
when I start getting accused of making too much sense, I just want to have an alligator sandwich and go to bed. You know what I mean?
and knowing your equipment, I mean, is huge. I mean, no one can tell you your distance. I mean, only you know your distance.
And
what you're
that's
comfortable
absolutely
with.
right.
Knowing the species you're hunting, you know, a whitetail
Yeah.
in the South, you know, you were talking about wind. If there's no wind and you're shooting at a whitetail at 40 yards and he's a little bit on edge, that's too far of a shot, because they're going to jump
It
the
is.
string most of the time.
It is, man. The first whitetail I ever killed in Mississippi was at Will's place. And I could not, I crawl up in this tree stand, and I'm like, I'd never been so high in my life. I'm thinking, what is wrong with these people, you know? And I remember I ranged the ground. I go right straight down. It was 11 yards to the ground. I'm like, are you kidding? I'm 33 feet up in the dang air, right? Doe and fawn come into the food plot and they look right up at me. I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, them are the wiriest galled, and them deer hunting with Bobby in Alabama. My Lord, I tell story. I'm very fortunate that I was able to hunt deer in places like that, because I'm going to tell you something, man, our Missouri deer are not like that. And they're just so much more. I mean, I had a guy one time, he is from Louisiana, and he got up in a ladder stand. We had a ladder stand on a food plot. And I think we had a nice little biologic Maxima food plot. Thing was beautiful. Deer were coming into it. He goes down there. He's in this tree stand. It's like, it was a 16-foot tree stand. And this guy crawls up there and he's like, you can't kill a deer out of this. So he stands on the seat so he could get up next to the tree, right? And the dang deer comes to his right. And now he can't shoot because the tree's in the way. So he's standing up there. The deer walks by, starts eating, and is feeding through the food plot. He steps down off the stand. He draws back and it walks off. Never did see him. He's like, if I would have just sat in the stand, I would have. And the deer walked right in front of the camera, 150-inch deer all day long. But that's, once again, that's going back to this guy in Louisiana. There ain't no way. So I got to remember, like, okay, you guys from down south, it's like, just trust the setup. You know, because you don't have to, crawl up on a branch 15 feet above where the tree stand is hung, you know, and try to hide in the tree. It's set up really good for you. But he was just, in awe. He'd never hunted any place other than Louisiana. and forgive me, I can't remember what part, but doesn't matter. I mean, it's like these things are just just always on. It's almost like hunting. I've killed a couple of cows deer. Oh my God.
Yeah, let's
hate mail now. Oh my God. But anyways, yeah, even the guys, it's actually pronounced cows, but a lot of people call it coos. But if you call it cows, and there's some people say no, it's a coos, and it's like, well,
yeah, we've had that argument.
Back to birthing deer. So, but anyways, so this poor guy here, he doesn't know any different, and so he felt like, man, this deer is going to come and pick me off in this tree stand. But that's where, back full circle, I'm just fortunate that I got to hunt places like with Will in Mississippi, and I hunted Arkansas. I got to hunt with Bobby down there, by Florence, Alabama, and I got to experience like what deer can really be when they're really evil.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they are. That's for sure. Yeah, well, that's interesting, because you different parts of the country, they're different. Our magazine editor Todd Ammonrood lives in Minnesota, not too far from you guys, and he's killed a half a dozen Pope and Youngs in the last 10 years out of ground blinds, and I mean, he's really good at that, and that's but we can't get away with that down here.
Well, you can.
Not to the extent that he
can really fast on that.
Does, yeah.
Not unless you build a beaver hut on top of it, of branches and stuff.
So, Paul, would you tell the story of the time that you went, I think it was bear hunting in Canada, and you got flown in and dropped out? Would you tell our listeners that story, please?
Oh man, my wife has never even heard this story, so she'll probably freak out. But whenever I do something, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go all in. Like when I learned to swim, I went to the deep end, and so anyways, we go up to Canada, and I brought my recurve, and I actually had a Black Widow recurve that I got, and I was messing around with it, and I shot this black bear. I had it for a couple of years, but I would always chicken out. I wouldn't use it, but we were on this brand new bait, and we set it up, and it was like 7 yards from the bait. And I'm like, well, if it's ever going to happen, this is going to have to be the place. So first night out, this bear comes in and I shoot it, and I was on cloud nine. I couldn't believe it. Right. So anyways, we needed to go back to the main camp to get supplies and stuff like that. And they had some stuff for sale there, and god dang, I bought a pack of cigarettes. I'm not a smoker.
Well, this is a good story.
Whatever. I bought some, I don't know what they were. They were menthol, and I smoked one of them suckers, and I swear I about passed out. And anyways, I'm like, oh dang, that was pretty good. So the guys were going the next day, so I had them get me a whole carton, and I chain smoked those things. I'm not kidding you. I chain smoke, and there's plenty of people, I promise you, that can verify this. But we had one book of matches. Or a couple books of matches, so I just kept them going. You get done with one and you light the next one. So I get up in the morning, I chain smoked all day, and we had to go get another carton of cigarettes. And so, anyways, this whole thing, and my really good friend of mine, Dan Nagel, says, "So you smoke now, huh?" And I go, "Well, I'll quit when I get back. No problem, right?" Well, anyways, we do this. We fly out of there. And after a week of that, man, did I want a cigarette, dude. I'm going to tell you, like, the next month was hell. I wanted one of them so bad. So if you try to tell me how hard it is to quit smoking, I'll tell you, I know exactly what you mean, because I quit. Now, granted, I didn't smoke for a long time, but I did like 2+ cartons in about a 5-day period. And yeah, it was pretty crazy. So anyways, I'm usually pulling some kind of shenanigans like that, but it really was. But I tell you what, you really get the cravings, and they don't work very good after the first carton. You don't even, you don't get a buzz from them, So, but anyways, I'm sure lots of people have done that.
Tons, I'm sure.
What I remember is he told the story, but he said he was back at his bow shop and he was tying in a peep, and his hands were shaking really bad.
Yeah.
And this
my God, I was shaky. I was terrible. It's wrong. Oh man, I quit smoking. And someone says, "Oh, you smoked?" I go, "Yeah, I quit though the other day." I said.
And they said, "How long have you been smoking?"
We didn't get into it,
Yeah,
but
said,
when you were.
They asked him, how long has he been smoking? And he said, 5 days.
I started last week, but I guarantee you I hit it as hard as it's ever been hit for a 5-day period,
I think there was a Simpsons episode like that or something.
It could be.
Maybe it was based on you.
It might have been. Jeez. But you were talking about the practicing with your equipment and stuff like that earlier, man. And so what's really funny is when I went on a muskox hunt in I was like 2000, it was like 20 some years ago, and I had this big this big jacket. They provided me with this caribou jacket, which was really warm. And I always say, have you ever seen a caribou shiver? No, because these things are warm, right? So I'm wearing this jacket and I go to shoot my bow, and man, it didn't shoot very good because the thing was, I swear to God, the thing was a foot thick, So I'm like, well, I'll slip my arm out when I shoot. So I slipped my arm out and I shot, and I was right on, So anyways, fast forward a couple days later, we are like, I don't even know, 12 miles out on a snowmobile. It's like -50. And I am the most miserable I've ever been in my whole life. I am so stinking cold. We're staying in a tent. I'm sleeping between two Eskimos. We get up in the morning, we go out, and finally on the third morning, we find these, where the hill comes, the wind blows off the snow and the lichen is all underneath there, and all these caribou are congregated there. So now we're gonna sneak up to them, right? Well, they're all eating. We walk up, and I got this jacket on, and I walk like 400 yards in it. And I was so stinking hot. There's sweat running down my deal. And we're waiting for him to come to us. And of course, I'm sitting there, and it's getting colder and colder and colder. And pretty soon I'm starting to shiver. And I'm like, wow, I got to do something, man. Finally, they get close enough, and they were like 30 yards. And he's like, all right there, that front one, to take that front one, right? And I remember I hooked my release on, and he's like, you going to take your arm out of the jacket? I'm like, nope. I'm like, heck no. And these things look like a Volkswagen covered in a shag carpet. You can't see the shoulder. You're like, so anyways, I draw back and I aim, and the arrow literally took off in a corkscrew. Like, I think it could have cleared a basketball. Like, I think it could have, and it hit it. And I thought I was too far back, and I'm like, oh no. And it runs about 20 yards and it stops. And I'm like, oh boy, now it's 50 yards, So I grab another arrow and I aim in front of it. And I shoot again, and that arrow does the corkscrew, and the first arrow just about hit. The second arrow almost hit the first arrow. I'm like, and it turned and it ran, and it stopped, and it fell over. And as it turns out, I was like back of the lungs, liver. It was actually a good, I thought it was the whole thing was just really goofy. It was so cold. And these Eskimos, they skin this thing out. They take their glove off, and they have one of them, them Coleman stoves you pump up, and they're warming their hands up on that, and then they cut, and they warm their hand, cut. I'm standing there, I'm freezing. And so I had 2 tags, and this is the first one. And I remember I tell them, hey, when we get this cut up, if we leave now, could we make it home before dark? And the guy's like, well, you still have another tag. I'm like, yeah, this is fine. I'm good to go. Get me the heck out of here. So we end up getting home. We get home, it's late after dark or whatever. I got a couple days before I fly out of there. And they're like, hey, you want to go to a hockey game? We're going to a hockey game tonight, And I'm like, yeah, that sounds like fun. Well, I don't know what I was thinking. Like they were going to be in an arena or something like that. But no, this thing was outside. Oh, gosh. And I remember we drove over there. I'm like, oh boy, it's outside. Well, yeah. They look at me like, I don't know what I was thinking. I thought I was going to be in the Metrodome or whatever. But anyways, no, I said, yeah, you better take me home, take me back to the house. So anyway, yeah, but once again, there's a situation where I shot. I had every good intention, but I got into a situation where I thought I was going to die. It was so cold, and I just went ahead and shot, with my jacket on, but really wasn't the right thing to do, but I did it anyway. And that time it turned out all right,
I've heard people that have been on that muskox hunt that they ride in the back of this buggy, and they're covered up with those skins, and they say it smells so bad that
that's what it was. It's exactly what. So get this, I'm in the back of this scalding thing, and I'm cold going out there. So I went and I got in my sleeping bag, and I had pulled the sleeping bag over my head, right? And I would get dizzy or seasick or car sickness or snowmobile on the 50 below zero ice sickness. And I would literally have to pull my head out and focus on the back of the sled. Then I would be okay. like, okay. Then I start getting cold again. Then I cover my head, and this goes on. We'd stop, and I'm like, are we almost there? Oh, we got 6 more hours. Oh God. Oh my God. Oh, it was really, really cold. Another really good friend of mine, which I don't know if you know Ray Howell from Kicking Bear Ray. I remember he had just gone polar bear hunting, and he offered me his Arctic expedition suit. And I'm like, no, they got caribou skins. They borrow us. Genius. So anyways, the whole time I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I wish I would have taken advantage of that. So, and it seemed like the other people that were up there hunting that had that, they were a lot more comfortable. Let's just say the people that had that Arctic expedition suit on. So if you ever go muskox hunting, give me a call. I'll hook you up.
There you go.
Oh my goodness, I can't imagine. Yeah,
it was, and I thought because I'm a Wisconsin boy, it's like, oh yeah, man. And we went in April. I'm like, well, yeah, this is just like spring, It's not. I promise you, it's life in the deep freeze, terrible. But I'm glad I did it. It was a great experience. That one day I went I was in Holman, Victoria, or we're on Victoria Island in a town called Holman. And I remember one day they asked me to go into the school and talk to all the classes. So you walk in the school, and to the right is first, second, third, and then fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th, all in one school. There's like maybe 30 kids in the whole school. And I went, and I remember I was in the third, fourth, fifth, or the fourth, fifth, sixth graders or whatever. And one of the kids asked me what happened to my hair. You can imagine all them little cute little Inuit kids, they all got a full head of hair, and nobody ever loses a one, And I told them every time you tell a lie, one falls out, And so hopefully I helped some kids up there,
Yeah, they probably never seen a bald white guy.
No,
before.
they were like, they're like, what? Like, what kind of devil is this? Like
Dr. Evil.
What little kid, what happened to your hair? And then the teacher's like, no, that's not polite. That's not polite to ask somebody that. I'm like, oh, that's all right. I have I'm what you call bald.
So,
Mostly
Paul,
bald.
You've traveled around the world hunting, though, but you're home there in Wisconsin. What is it that you've been and done so much, but what is it that you really enjoy about hunting? Is it deer? Is it turkeys? What is it?
You know what? It's really white-tailed deer. That is really, and I think for a lot of people, it's kind of like what you started doing. And I've noticed that, I get a lot of people that come from the South, and, turkey hunting is an absolute religion in the South. And it's really not like that, I think, because turkeys haven't really been, up here as long. I mean, I think I was 30 years old before I seen my first turkey in Wisconsin. So it's really, but down there it's like a religion. But I always enjoy hunting whitetail deer because we grew up doing that, and we grew up and I really enjoy. I mean, I've got 80 acres here right at my place in Wisconsin that I manage, and it's kind of just outside. It's in St. Croix County. It's kind of just outside of where there's a bunch of developments and stuff. So it's probably the biggest chunk of timber and woods right here or whatever. So I got food plots back here, and I got a little turnip plot that my dad sits on that's right back in the woods, kind of off the east side of the road. And I think he has killed, I want to say 24 does in the last 4 years.
Yep.
Off this. I mean, and I just got a picture yesterday. I got a picture of 7 on there at one time. It's like nobody else shoots them. The car gets, so I'd be like, Dad, and he just loves it. You remember my dad, Bobby,
Yeah.
he just go, yeah. So anyways, I'll call him up and I'll go, yep, we got some work to do, buddy. And he's right over here to do it. He loves it.
Yeah, so obviously that you enjoy managing your property there and then in Missouri, but it's just absolutely so rewarding to be there and do things 12 months out of the year. And don't you find?
It really is. And it's funny because I just had a guy, just got back from Missouri, our season opener. We had a hunt the 15th through the 19th. So I came home yesterday, which was the 20th. And there was a guy down there that's hunted with us before. And he was so inspired by, we got this food plot and you can go. So he went and did his first food plot, and he's showing me pictures, and he's like, yeah, and next year I'm going to do this and that and that. And he's looking for, I think, I think like Bruce Hudala is probably the best example of that. I swear he enjoys so much going out and actually managing his land and working it and trying things and putting in trails and making back doors and adding food plots and trying this and doing that. And it really is fun. And I told the guy, I said, I can tell you right now, if you're going to get into this for like the next 5 years, all you're going to do while you're hunting is you're going to sit up in your tree stand and go, I need to make that plot bigger. I need to stand over there. But once you get past all that, to the point where where it's like, wow, this is really fun. Like I've got it all set up. I built a tower stand for my dad, and he's got, it's got, a rail on each side and a 5-inch lift on the stairs. So he can get up there real easy. It's got a big landing so he can open the door and not feel like you're crawling into a tunnel or whatever, so, but I go, it's a lot of fun, and you bring enjoyment. It's really fun to grow and manipulate the deer. And I think the first time you do that, it's pretty exciting, when you're like, wow, I watched this deer with cameras all summer. I put this plot here. I put this screen here so I could get to the stand. I had the stand up. I waited for the wind and everything to be perfect. And I slipped in here and I killed this deer. And it's really fun. So, I like to do a lot of different things. I really enjoy whitetail hunting, but the bear hunting, I kind of like that because it's such a social thing. We can, there's some things that are just not made, to be done in big groups, but things like that, hog hunting, bear hunting, things like that, where you can have a bunch of people and kind of be more of a social event. I enjoy all that stuff. And, I go from, hunting with, like some really, like going and hunting with Will Primos, to the next week I'm hunting, public land in Nebraska, so, I like doing whatever it is, it's just fun to go out and go hunting and try to see what you can do,
For sure. This is a little off subject, but you've mentioned Will Primos a couple of times. Can you, and I'm sure our listeners want to know, can you explain how you got tied in with them back in the day?
Yeah, I was a Primos dealer at my store, A1 Archery, and Will was always really good about calling all new dealers. So I got to talk with him on the phone, and then I was getting into video and filming and stuff, and I kind of had some ideas, and through Bruce Hudala, Bruce was repping for him at the time. Bruce used to have Hudala and Associates, and so I was talking to Bruce about it, and Bruce said, hey, I can have Will give you a call. And so I met him on the phone. We had a real nice conversation for about a half hour. Well, wait a minute, half hour with Will was probably more like 10 minutes, but it was, we got a half hour's worth of stuff done in 10 minutes, I guarantee you. So anyways, we had this real conversation, and then our paths didn't really cross for probably several more years when I was at the Wisconsin Bowhunters Convention, and he was there. I think he was at Gander Mountain doing a seminar, and Casey Bloom, good old Bloom, had to go pick him up, and they swung by. And I started talking to him about injection molding parts. And, he was using a bunch of different people. And I said, well, I'd really like to give it a try and let me show you what I can do for it. And he's like, you're up in Wisconsin. That's too far. And I go, man, I promise you, I'll do a good job for you. And we can even go hunting. And he's like, everybody wants to go hunting with me. You're not going to go hunting with me. So every year I go, remember when we weren't going to go hunting? You said that time. And he just looks at me like, but anyway, so I started doing work for him, and actually on my YouTube channel, if somebody wants to check it out, you can go in there and just type in how Will Primos met Paul Korn. Actually, he tells the story. And because we had him come up to A1 Archery and do our customer appreciation day one year. And I was supposed to introduce him in true Will Primos fashion. He, I go up there and he introduces me and tells the story about how we met. And of course we videoed the whole thing, and I put that stream on my YouTube channel. But yeah, so then we did a lot of work together, and we started hunting together, and I used to do all his bow work. And then I taught him how to work on bows and stuff, and he took over and started doing his own stuff. But yeah, for a long time, even for a while, with Bear Archery, with the Primos Truth bow, he was with them for 2 years, and per their agreement, he could have 2 advisory people. And I think he had Cameron Miller on there and myself. Us 2 were, as part of the Primos, approval process for the bows and stuff like that. So I remember I was so proud. The first Truth bow that ever came out, they called him and they said, hey, we got it built. And man, I think you're really going to like it. We're going to send it out today. And Will told him to send it to me, send it to Paul Korn. I want him to shoot it and tell me before I even look at it. And I'm like, this is pretty special, you know, because I'm like, wow. Compliment. I mean, because going back to the first time Will took me on a hunt down to Cottonmouth, down to Will Walker's place, you know, and I remember I get down there and I'm like, my God, I'm hunting with, you know, Will Primos and Will Walker, and Brad Ferris is there filming, and actually Bob Dixon was there. That's when I met Bob Dixon, you know, and his son Will was there. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, this thing is just surreal, right? And so anyways, we go, okay, we're going to go shoot our bows. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then we go out and we shoot bows. And I'm like, this is going to be embarrassing, you know, for them. I'm like, oh my God. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, oh my God. Like Will draws his bow back and his draw length is like 1.5 inches too long. And I don't know, Walker, I don't know what the heck, man. He was eyeballing her down the arrow and letting it blow. And I'm like, holy smokes. I couldn't believe it. And Will Walker says, you got 3 pins on your bow, huh? And I go, yeah, I got a 20, 30, and a 40. He goes, you shoot at 40 yards. And I'm like, I had my 100-yard thing on there. I took it off and I go, yeah, I'd like to see that. And I'm like, I went back and shot a couple groups at 40 yards, and they're like, and I mean, I was nervous, but I put them in a baseball, and they were just all impressed. So then Will says, man, I'd like to shoot like that. And so I started working with Will. I'm like, well, the first thing we got to do is, you know, work on your form and your trigger pull and your follow through and all that other stuff. And man, I'm telling you what, man, I don't think anybody will ever understand how good of a shot he is. I mean, he really, like, I mean, he cleaned up just like that. And he literally is such a good shot and really executes a shot exactly the way you should. And I mean, I was really proud of the way he, you know, pull that all thing together. But I got to tell you one other quick story. So I used to go down there like every other weekend. I'd go down there. I'd fly down on Friday, spend Saturday, Sunday, Monday, you know, his secretary, Lorena, would bring me back to the airport, and we'd work on projects. Like we're trying to, you know, I'm designing and building the Hoochie Mama, let's say, or something. Okay. Or so I'm working on all this stuff. And anyways, he had this little place he called Anniewood, and he ended up selling it after he bought Rivers Run, you know. And anyways, we go down there, and he was so proud because he was shooting really well, right? So he goes down there and he's shooting at 50 yards, getting ready to go elk hunting. And anyways, he's like, all right, we're going to have a competition. He's like, for $1 million, best shot closest to the orange dot on the elk. And I'm like, well, can I at least shoot it once? And he goes, yeah, you can take one shot. So I pick his bow up and I shoot it. I think it was low left. I don't know. I think it was like around 7 o'clock, you know? So anyways, he shoots and he hit it. And then I shot, and my shot was better. And he goes, okay, double or nothing. And I go, no, I'm good. He goes, come on, double or nothing. Nope. Took the release off. I'm done. I want my $1 million. And I'm still looking for it. Will Primos does not pay up on his bets. I beat him fair and square. And he told me that, well, Will Walker owes me, you know, some money for our bet. As soon as he pays me, I'll pay you. I'm like, man, all these guys, man, that's how they got money. They don't pay their bets. But no, we just have a lot of fun. And matter of fact, I sent him an invoice. I made him up like a fake invoice for losing archery bet for $1 million. I got it hanging in my back closet. I'm like, yeah. So anyways, he was feeling his oats or whatever. And I'm like, I'll get my own bow out here and we'll have a real contest, you know? But anyways, it was just a very much a blessing, you know, being able to work, and really through all those people, you know, through meeting Bruce Hudala, I got to meet Will Primos, and then got to meet Bobby Cole, and it goes on and on and on and on with a lot of different people. So a lot of great people. Meeting Bob Dixon, I was very fortunate to be able to get to meet him, because I really enjoyed. We were down there, you know, for 3 or 4 days, and you know, and then of course shortly after that is when he got diagnosed, you know. And that was, I mean, I feel very fortunate to be able to meet him. And so many people know him. When I talk about, you know, people that know that I know Will Primos, they'll come into camp and stuff like that. And matter of fact, I had a guy that's hunting with me this year, and he's like, you don't know Bob Dixon, do you? And I go, well, I hunted with him, but I didn't know him that well. And he said he won a calling contest, and he, I can't remember. He was supposed to have a jacket or shirt or something like that. And he goes, he didn't have it. So Bob went out to his car and got a prototype. Like, I can't remember which one it was, but it wasn't even out yet. And he gave him that shirt. And that guy still has that shirt hanging in his closet today.
That's cool.
Very cool.
It really was. And I'm like, man, so I sent it on to Will and I said, hey man, if you want to send this on to Toxie or someone, maybe they, maybe would want to hear the story or whatever. But I mean, the guy was, just about in tears telling the story about it, but it's so, there's a lot of people that are really connected to Mossy Oak, and to Primos and to the traditions of the South, I call it now, I mean,
For
it's
sure.
all very fortunate to get drug into that world, So I've been very fortunate, to be able to do what I love and try to do it at a high enough level where people still believe in you and use you and come to the archery shop and come hunting with you, and touched a lot of people and worked with a lot of people and, and just had a lot of fun throughout the years. And that's my motto, be serious when you got to be serious, but you got to have fun too.
That's right. Life's too short.
Oh, he
At
lives
least
that.
here.
He lives that. He literally does. We had him in camp one time, and Austin had gone to the store at the beginning of hunting season and bought beverages, for the whole season, I guess, Cokes and Mellow Yellow and all that. But he bought a case of tabs. Paul, you remember this?
I forgot about that.
24 cans of tab. And by the end of the season, nobody had the young guys listening to this won't even know what a tab is, but Coke used to have a product. It was in a pink can called a tab. And it was a diet drink. Had
The
1
original
calorie.
0 calorie.
Yeah. So
Terrible.
At the end of the season, Paul and Bruce come down to hunt, and we just casually mentioned to Paul that nobody's drank those tabs. So in a 2 or 3 day period, Paul drank 24 cans of tab.
I have cured myself of the tab, kind of like this. He's like, man, that stuff's going to be there forever. We can polish off a 24 tab.
I feel
how
sorry
hard can
for
that
them.
be? That stuff has a wicked aftertaste. It's terrible. Is it still? Can you still buy it?
I don't think so. No. I don't know.
I feel
Thank
so sorry
God.
for these people. I'm going to have to drink the rest of these tabs.
Oh my goodness. Well,
I
look.
remember one time I was hunting mountain goats in British Columbia one time, and we needed 2-liter bottles. And so anyways, we went to town and we were going to pack up into the Gulbing Mountains the next day. And he didn't have any bottles. So he bought 2 2-liter bottles of Diet Coke, and he was getting ready to dump them down the drain because he needed the bottle. I'm like, oh no, you don't. I drank both of those suckers. And I'm like, I woke up the next morning. I'm like, oh, I don't feel good. You drank 4 liters of Coke. That's a gallon, right? Well, not quite. 3.9 liters in a gallon. I don't want to exaggerate, but anyways, and that guy's name is Warren Wolfenden. He's got Beaverfoot Outfitters. You call him up. You know him. He'll vouch for me on that one, unfortunately.
So look, while we're right here and we're all laughing, we always do a thing every week, and where Dudley asks. He rapid fire some questions at you, and it's brought to you by our friends at Springfield Armory. They make those great pistols. Springfield Armory is just a great partner of ours. And but Dudley, why don't you I'm going to turn you loose, Paul. Get ready because these come fast.
All right, Paul. So I'm going to ask them quick, and I'd like you to answer them quickly. Okay.
Alligator sandwich.
That's yes. Okay.
All right.
All right. So are you ready?
Yep.
Elk or muleys?
Muley.
Whitetails, hunt at home or out of state?
At home.
Waterfowl or upland birds like pheasants and quail?
Pheasants.
Vienes or sardines?
Oysters.
Good answer. Oatmeal or grits?
Oatmeal.
Tea, sweet or unsweet?
Oh, sweet.
Just you're hunting out in the out of state. Are you in a motel or are you truck camping?
Motel now. Truck camping 20 years ago.
Paper tune or bear shaft tune?
Both.
Good answer. Ocean fishing or freshwater?
Fresh.
Shampoo or shampoo plus conditioner?
Baking soda. What do I need conditioner for, man? 1 drop of hand sanitizer will get me done.
Tab or Diet Coke?
Diet Coke. Unless there's a challenge.
Bow kill fish, bow kill and rough fish, eat or bury them and turn them into fertilizer?
Tilapia, eat. Buffalo, eat. Everything else, fertilizer.
There you go.
I do okay?
I think at one time he was killing so many. He got into bow fishing, and he was killing so many fish. He had to buy a bulldozer to dig holes for bury.
I did. I had a guy come with a bag. We killed 18,000 pounds of fish one summer. I got into. We get back. We weigh the buckets every night. We keep track of it. But they just opened it up in Wisconsin at night, and these lakes had no idea what was in store for them. It was crazy. I mean, we had so many so many fish on the boat the first night we just about put her under. I don't think they're made to have, they're not made to have like 1,800 pounds of fish on the boat. You know, you gotta kind of do it in steps, you know, but we had a lot of fun.
I just had to wipe my eyes. I was crying.
Mac, have you got any questions for him?
No, I've had enjoyed this one. This was good.
He's so much fun. I wish Lanny could have been here. He'd have laughed his tail off at Paul. And while I'm thinking about it, before I forget it, you keep mentioning bear archery. Bear archery has a bow in bottomland now.
Oh, wow.
Now, that is a good-looking bow. It sure is. So I'm a fan of bear. That's what I'm shooting. I like them.
That's what I've got.
So, but look, it seemed like we had something else we needed to. I can't remember, but we do have a Paul. We've got an official trivia question that we want to ask you. We've got
trivia.
A trivia question. You've got a chance that some listener to our podcast, if they leave a review, then we may randomly pick them out and they have a chance to win a prize. But we ask you the question. If you get it right, they win a prize. If you get it wrong, they're probably going to hate you for this. So there's a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure. So I don't want to say hate, but they'll probably be a little frustrated with you, Paul. So Richie, what we got?
All right, so we're playing for JP Easterling, and the prize here is a Spartan camera.
Oh my gosh.
That's a great
So it's a
prize.
big
Holy cow.
So yeah, it's a big one.
I'd like to apologize in advance.
Pressure's on.
All right, so the question is, what state has the most linear coastline? What state has the most linear coastline?
California?
Oh, I'm looking at Paul, and he's looking up. So he's not looking at his computer. He's not Googling. He's just using that mind right there. He's trying to think. And he went California, which is a pretty obvious choice, but it's not the right choice. Would you like to try that again?
So
think about it.
Just think about how many states there are in our country.
And you can phone a friend. You can phone a friend as well.
I think Obama said there was 54, right?
You can holler down and ask your wife if you wanted to.
There's more than 48.
Yeah, there's 50 of them. The most linear, so a straight line.
Well, no, coastlines.
Are we just talking
most coastlines?
Coastlines can be wavy.
Oh, well,
coastline.
then can I go? Would it be Florida then? Because that goes all the way around. That would be.
Mr.
I'm sorry. When you said linear, I'm thinking like in a straight line, like California's straight, right?
Yeah. Okay, so let's forget linear. What state has the most coastline?
The most coastline? Florida's got to be up there.
It is. It is.
It's got to be up there. But is it the big? I'm trying to think surface-wise. Man, Texas has a lot too, don't they?
Oh my gosh, Paul.
Well, maybe not the lower 48.
Huh?
Yeah. Okay. Paul, keep thinking.
Coastline.
What is the biggest state?
You might have shot a bear there.
He's been there. We've talked about it today.
Or a caribou. Or a moose.
Yeah.
Starts with an A and ends in an A.
No. Alaska? What am I
you got it right.
No, wait a minute. Hold on a second. I assumed lower 48.
That's why I said that.
Well, you shouldn't have assumed. It's a state.
Oh my gosh. I'm thinking, yeah, I mean I was thinking the lower, so that's why. Yeah, never mind.
I think you're going to have to buy the camera.
Yeah.
Can I have a different question? I'm going to buy the guy the camera. Oh my God. Oh, that's terrible. Can I have another? Do I really want another one?
No, I don't think you do.
This is a place where you should quit while you're behind, right?
Do we have time for the Ask Dudley?
Well, might as well. You got one prepared?
Okay.
Let's do it.
Quick Ask Dudley. Hey, Dudley. Several of my oaks and persimmons I planted got eaten by deer when they grew out of the top of the tree tubes. Now it looks like an overweight multi-stem bush right at the top of the tube. Picks attached. What branches should I prune to get it growing upright again? Any more tips? Gus down in Concordia Parish, Louisiana. That's good, Gus. I get this question frequently, and I usually defend the use of 4-foot tubes. We've chosen to carry those instead of the 5 and 6 footers that can actually be out of the reach of deer when they're, want to eat what grows out of the top. And my answer to that is we like the trees to get up and out of the tube sooner than later so they can start adding some more diameter growth because, tubes have a lot of pros and cons. One of the very few cons is that they tend to grow a little more spindly. They put on more height growth and less diameter growth. So, but once they get out of the tube, they start adding diameter growth. And after a couple years, they can hold themselves up. But yes, you need to head that off. My answer is to spray some kind of deer away or something in the top of the tube. Get your barber to collect some human hair. You can put that in the top of the tube to keep the deer away from that tree long enough to where it can grow out of their reach. It's really easy to do. But if you miss the cut on that, yes, it'll just start throwing branches out right at the top of the tube and be a mess. And making corrective pruning cuts, in my opinion, is really not the answer because you may have 10 or 12 branches basically growing out of the same height, and it's a mess. So my answer to that, and something I learned growing trees in pots, is late that next winter, early that spring, go down to about 3 foot in height or 2 to 3 foot in height on your seedling and just completely cut it off to where it's just a 2 or 3 foot stick. And then it's naturally going to send up new shoots out of the top of that stub. And then you can prune to where it's just one main stem. And so it's got such a good root system because it's been in the ground a year that it's going to send up that new main stem in no time, and it's going to be very vigorous growth. And so that's how you do that. Just manage it, lop it off and manage it for a brand new main stem. It'll catch up in no time, and it works.
So that doesn't matter if it's hard mast or soft mast, because I know we said oaks and persimmons, so you can do the same thing on both.
Yeah, but just keep in mind when you lop that stem off at 2 or 3 feet above the ground, it's going to try to send up more than one shoot, and you have to come back a couple weeks later, and you can actually just snap the remaining branches off and just pick the best looking one, and it'll be your new main stem.
Would you fertilize it when you do that, or wait?
While you're there, go ahead and put some fertilizer around it. Yeah, we've got that new fertilizer that's so awesome. Put some mulch around it if you need to do some weed control, the whole 9 yards. I mean, our goal is to get that thing it's grown as fast as you can in the first 3 to 4 years, and then you can start babying another set of trees. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, how about that, Paul? Yeah,
that is great advice.
That's good information there. So
he's way smarter than I am, I can tell you.
I mean, people were trying to, cut 8 different branches off at the same place, and it was just a mess. And so lop it off and start over. And it's already got such a good root system that it'll catch up in no time.
So, Paul, I'm going to put the pressure on you before we let you go. Is there one hunting story that's just your favorite that you like to tell, one that's funny or dangerous? Or you've got to have a good one. Can we end on a good story?
Man, I got a lot of them. And I told the two that I tell the most are the ones that I told you about, the muskox and the brown bear hunt. Them two are, I mean, there's just so many of them. I'm trying to think. You probably heard of one that you want me to tell.
Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, I've heard some of them, but it seems like there was a story involving maybe your first Pope and Young whitetail, and you were a young guy, and I just want to say that there was I just remember some kind of crazy story.
Well, the first Pope and Young whitetail, it's kind of a little bit crazy, but I was it would have been in 1987. So I would have been 20 when I got my first Pope and Young whitetail. And I have a really good friend of mine, Tim Gass, the guy I talked about earlier that kind of got me into bow hunting. We would take turns rattling for each other. And so we would, it was his turn to call for me, and we're hunting. It was November 5th, 1987. And he gets up on the tree and he goes to rattle for me. And when he clanged the horns together, he hit his thumb and he dropped him. And I look over and he's climbing. He's in his climber crawling down the tree. I'm like, what in the heck is he doing? Picks up his rattling antlers, crawls back up on the tree, and he rattles again. And this buck comes in. Oh, wow. And I'm like, oh boy, that's a big one, So the thing comes around, and I had a doe and heat bottle kind of in a bloat, like a tree had fallen down, and I set this bottle of estrus in there with a cotton ball in it, and this buck comes up and he puts his nose right in it, and I'm at full draw, like 15 yards, and I smack him right behind the shoulder, and with a Rocky Mountain, Supreme, remember them things, Yeah. And it goes through, and he goes sideways, and he falls over the tree, knocks the tree over, gets up, and he runs away. And I'm like, oh my, I can't believe it, I finally got a really big buck. So I crawled on out of the tree. I go back to Tim. I'm like, what the heck were you doing? He's like, oh, I hit my thumb, and he dropped the antlers. He's all right. Well, we got to give it some time. We were at that point, we'd shot at a lot of deer and screwed a lot of things up, but we knew we had to get out of there. So anyways, we get out of there. We go back to the house, and my wife, bless her soul, Billy Joe, I tell her the story. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got an arrow in this great big buck. And, we just got to give it a little bit of time. And she comes up and she gives me a hug and says, don't get your hopes up. You could imagine what it was like before that. It's like, no. This time I hit the deer. I seen the arrow, because heck, I get so dang excited to be like, I shot this. Well, I guess I missed it. I wouldn't find it or whatever. And so anyways, we went out and got that deer. And I remember I brought it back to the house and I locked it in the shed. I had a little yard barn thing, So I got married in 86. It would have been a year after I got married. We had this little metal shed, and I went, drug the deer in there and locked it so no one would take it. That's how excited I was, But anyways, my wife's saying, don't get your hopes up, And then after that, the tides turn, and, it gets a little bit easier, and we just, we kept chucking on. But yeah, but there's so many. I look around my room here, and there's an incredible amount of just a lot of fun stories, Someday you got to come over and I'll tell you a lot.
Oh my goodness. Well, we sure have enjoyed having you on here, and I would encourage people to they can go and follow you on your YouTube channel. It's Paul Korn, Korn.
Is the R backwards on that? Like the band?
No. Them people, I'm dealing with them. No, the R's the right way in mine, but that's the Paul Korn Bow Hunting Channel. Yep. I started that in 2011, and kind of just as a place to put some hunts on and have, and just kind of, it really grew into quite a matter of fact. I couldn't believe it. I remember I'm looking through, I got a new computer a couple of years ago, and I was downloading, I think I put Chrome on there or something like that. And it was a little bit different view, and it said top 10 bow hunting channels on YouTube. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And I look at it, and it's like, of course, Drury's are number one, and then it's Tim Wells, and I'm going down through the deal or whatever. And I get to number 10, and it was me. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, number 10. I'm like, when they give a little, I'm like, wow, that was pretty cool. Not, I'd never expected that, but yeah, there's a lot of videos on there, a lot of hunting, and a lot of, and so what's really interesting is that, after you get to a certain level on YouTube, they hook you up with someone, an advisor to help you. And so anyways, they kind of go through my whole channel and stuff. And they're like, well, if you would just allow anybody to comment on your videos, that it would blow up. You would get so much more traffic. But people can comment, but I have to approve them, so that really hurts me in the algorithms. But when I got my dad on there and my friends on there hunting, there's some people that say some pretty bad things. It rolls off my back. I look at it and I feel sorry for them, but there's, anti-hunters, and there's a lot of people that just, that I just don't really enjoy all of that kind of stuff. So I thought, whatever, it is what it is. It's a great place to, we get back from bear hunting and I film a couple of hunts. I can load it on there and I can send people a link to it, and they seem to enjoy it. It's just a lot of fun, Matter of fact, I just loaded Bruce Udall a bunch of his mule deer hunts on from the past. If you look at probably the last half dozen hunts I posted, a couple of them are Bruce shooting some real nice mule deer in Wyoming. But just I am honestly very, very grateful for everybody and for all the people and for, being able to do this and all the great people that I've got to meet through the years. It's almost surreal,
Yeah, it is. Well, so we sure have enjoyed having you on here, Paul, and I'd like to do this again. I would encourage anybody if you live in that Wisconsin area, to go by A1 Archery if they hadn't already and experience that. Tombstone Creek Outfitters is probably another something that they could follow online and learn more about you, or maybe even go hunting with you, Paul, if somebody's brave enough to go do that. So.
Yeah, every now and then there's one. One will take a chance, Yeah. Oh, it's a lot of fun. Man, I appreciate it. You guys got a great deal. I really enjoyed listening to the couple of podcasts on clover. We've really gotten into that down in Missouri, where we find that, it's kind of funny. When I first started out, I kind of thought clover was kind of the lazy man's way out or whatever. And it's like, really for getting the whole season out of it, and really all the way through the summer into the early fall, all the way until really some of these blends really hold up nice now, going into when they get cold and don't go dormant as fast, and so we've really, really focused in on, that. So it's really, I was listening to a podcast here, one of the recent ones where he's talking about, like trying not to stress it, which is really hard when you have your droughts and stuff like that. But we've been getting some good years out of them, and it's been working good. But there's so much information out there, and there's a lot of great stuff, and it's just finding the right ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is. Well, I sure have enjoyed this. And look, I want to remind our listeners, on Tuesday nights, we got the Gamekeepers television show on the Outdoor Channel. You can watch that. We've got, guys, you can also, this podcast, you could go watch it on YouTube, and you could see Paul answering these questions. Producer Richie has worked his magic, and there's Paul sitting right there. He's right here with us. So we'd appreciate, guys, if you would share this podcast with your friends. I think that we'd appreciate that. Give us a review, and I'm looking at the fall issue.
The new magazine.
It's in the mail. The fall issue of the Gamekeepers. So we got a lot going on, guys, and next week we'll be back with another podcast. But we sure have enjoyed this, Paul. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, guys. Great meeting y'all.
Absolutely.
That was going to be hard to top.
Oh, it is. He's a hoot now. He really is. So I think that's about everything. Mac, you got anything else to add?
I'm good.
All right. Why don't you say goodbye, Dudley?
Goodbye, Dudley. Get us out of here, Mac.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Gamekeeper Podcast. And be sure to tune in again. Subscribe to Gamekeeper Farming for Wildlife magazine, and don't miss the Mossy Oak Properties Fistful of Dirt podcast with my good buddy, Ronnie Cuz Strickland.